Today we are tackling a huge question, one that honestly should be on every single leader's mind. How do you actually govern high-stakes decisions when AI is in the room? We're going to move way beyond just using AI as a creative partner and ask the really tough question: how can we turn it into a trusted and, more importantly, a defensible corporate tool?
Leaders don't really lose sleep over new tech. They lose sleep over consequences. And as the source material for this explainer puts it so well, it's not just any decision, but unaccountable decisions that pose the real catastrophic risk. So look, this isn't about being afraid of AI. It's about demanding accountability from every single decision it touches.
And that really brings us to the core question you've got to be asking about your own AI tools. Think about it. Are they just making helpful conversational suggestions, or are they helping you produce structured, genuinely accountable decisions? The difference between those two things? Well, as we're about to see, it's pretty much everything.
So that brings us to our first major hurdle, and it's a big one: the intelligence illusion. This is that really dangerous assumption that just because an AI sounds intelligent, it must be making sound, well-governed decisions. Let's break down exactly why that is such a risky and frankly common leap of faith. Okay, so here's the trap, right? An AI gives you this super confident sounding answer and it does it instantly. And our brains, they just naturally interpret that confidence as correctness. And that speed is efficiency. We mistake this fast spinning wheel for actual forward progress. But that feeling of correctness can be a massive, and I mean a really dangerous, false sense of security.
And here is the fundamental disconnect. On one hand, you have these incredible large language models. They're marvels of probability, right? They're literally engineered to predict the next most likely word in a sentence. But on the other hand, you have the ironclad shield of accountability. The bottom line is these models were never, ever designed to meet enterprise governance standards. And that's not a knock on them. It's a crucial design fact we just have to understand. So if generic AI isn't built for accountability, well, what is? To really get the DAP, we first need a yardstick. We need a standard. Let's define what the absolute non-negotiable standard is for a truly defensible corporate decision. These right here. This is the bedrock of corporate governance. These aren't just, nice-to-haves. They're absolute must-haves. Every single defensible decision needs clear ownership, it needs documented assumptions, and it needs a rock-solid audit trail. It needs things like kill metrics, which are just predefined conditions where you have to stop the project. Without these elements, your decision isn't a fortress. It's a house of cards, just waiting for a gust of wind. This is our standard.
Okay, so now that we have our standard, we can pinpoint the core problem, what we call the governance gap. This is the exact point where the very impressive capabilities of generic AI collide head-on with the super strict requirements of corporate decision-making. And as you can see, this is where things tend to break.
So the governance gap, what is it? It's that chasm between the casual, conversational advice a chatbot can spit out in seconds and the structured, defensible decision your organization absolutely requires. One is cheap, it's plentiful. The other is accountable. And operating in this gap without even realizing it is one of the biggest hidden risks in business today. This comparison just makes the mismatch crystal clear. On the left, you've got everything generic AI is fantastic at: conversation, creativity, summarizing things, incredible tools. But then, look at the right. Look at what it was not designed for: assigning ownership, creating audit trails, documenting assumptions. It'll help you draft the memo, for sure, but it won't help you defend the decision behind it. So, how do these models actually perform when the pressure is on? We decided to put them to the test. The source material for this explainer ran a really high-stakes scenario across several major AI models, just to see how they'd measure up against our decision-making standard. Let's see what happened. Now, the scenario wasn't some simple prompt. It was a classic corporate crisis. Picture this: your CFO just quit, out of the blue. 2 senior staff followed them out the door. You've got an external audit looming in 3 weeks and a board meeting in just 10 days. This is that pressure cooker situation where big decisions define careers. It is the perfect stress test.
And the results? Wow, they weren't even close. Just look at this chart. On our 10-point governance scale, the system that was purpose-built for this scored a perfect 10. In contrast, the big generic models like Gemini and ChatGPT, they barely scored a 3. The takeaway here is so clear. Generic AI gives you analysis, but it does not give you governance.
This quote from the source material just perfectly sums it all up. Anyone can produce a paragraph. Few can produce a defensible decision. I mean, that's the entire governance gap right there, in a single sentence.
So this brings us to the solution. What is the critical difference between a generic AI assistant and a governed AI system that's truly built for these enterprise-level decisions? Let's break it down.
It really comes down to this. Generic AI offers you advice. A governed AI system helps you structure decisions. And as this slide shows, advice is just fleeting chatter. Decisions, on the other hand, are anchors. They have owners, they have risks, and they have real-world consequences. A governed system is built around that fundamental reality from the ground up.
A governed system is just different by design. It's not some open-ended chatbot, it's a structured workflow. It literally forces you to define owners and kill metrics. It automatically generates audit-ready documents, and it ensures a human is always in the loop. You see, governance isn't an afterthought here, it's the entire operating system. And that brings us to a really clear definition of our whole topic. AI decision governance isn't about getting smarter suggestions. No, it's a system that provides structure. It embeds owners, timelines, and human oversight directly into the process itself, creating a record that is absolutely defensible from day one.
And so we end with a critical question for you and for your organization. Because the audit is always coming, whether it's a literal one or just a metaphorical one. When someone asks why a key decision was made, is your answer going to be a chat log, or is it going to be a defensible, audit-ready decision record? The choice you make will define your accountability.